Awesome. Well, welcome back to another episode of FuzeBuzz. We're excited to have another awesome alumni here. We've got Steffany Nelson. Steffany, thanks for coming in.
Thanks. It was great to be here.
Yeah.
It's nice to see the place again. I haven't seen anybody for a while.
Really? How long has it been?
I haven't been here in a couple months, I think.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Well, did you come back from the last game day?
No, I missed it. I think I was working that day.
Oh, okay.
Saturday.
Well, hopefully you're getting paid. Maybe before we dive into too much fun, could you introduce yourself? Give our listeners a little bit of an idea of who they're talking to.
Yeah. So I'm Steffany. I'm currently working as an assistant UI team lead at IoT.
Fancy.
Not assistant to the UI team lead.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that now. Just generally doing a lot of coding, and I'm clearly a huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
And generally an overall nerd, and a very happy LearningFuze grad.
Yeah. What were you doing before LearningFuze?
I was actually a project manager at a web agency previously. So I also spent a lot of time around code. I just wasn't writing it then. So building big websites, a bunch of different stuff like that.
Yeah. So you
knew
knew what was going on.
Yeah. Just making sure everybody actually wrote their code.
Gotcha.
So yeah, but I actually had a lot of interaction with all the different developers. I got to see a lot of the different code. I got to work with them on different stuff. And that was eventually what actually convinced me to pursue LearningFuze, was that I really enjoyed what I was around.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. I really liked it, and I really liked the atmosphere. And I liked the people, and I liked kind of what they were doing. So I was like, this might be a good fit for me.
Yeah. You're like, these are my people. I just let me do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Get my hands on there. What was that, I guess, kind of, kicker that said, I have to do this? I imagine maybe you thought about it for a little bit.
I had thought about it for, I don't even know. I thought about it for a long time, probably multiple years. I considered it on and off, but it was never super practical to leave my job and go to a boot camp. Because bills. But I got engaged, and we were going to get married. And I was like, I'm not going to have enough money at my current job. I need to move somewhere. I was approaching kind of the ceiling for what I was doing.
Yep.
And the ceiling of what you could get as a project manager without a serious degree. And it wasn't going to be enough for us to be able to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, I need to move into some kind of career that has a better ceiling. I can actually make some progress.
Yeah. Less of a ceiling, more of a floor in the pay.
Yeah, exactly. A bigger floor. And so I ended up deciding, I was like, you know what? I know a bunch of developers. They can give me some really good advice. I'm really interested in this. I've been in tech for almost 10 years now. Obviously I like this. I should check it out. This, if I'm going to do it, this is the time to do it now. Before we get married, before we can't afford anything, just do it right now and then get it out of the way.
Before more life happens.
Exactly. So that's actually why I ended up pursuing it, because I was like, perfect timing. No one should ever do boot camp while they're planning a wedding. I'm just saying. Yeah. It was terrible. Yeah, but it was the perfect time to actually do it.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe it worked out in the sense that it allowed you to truly disconnect from the code for a little while.
Exactly.
And focus on something that needed just as much attention.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it all worked out, right?
Yeah, it did. It worked out really well.
He said yes.
Yeah, exactly.
He said, I do.
He said, I do.
Yes.
So yeah, it worked out really well. We've been married for about 6 months now.
That's awesome.
We got married, and I interviewed for my new job 4 days later.
No way. Yeah. Were you still rolling off of the wedding high and stuff?
We took a week off, and I was like, all right, bye. I'll see you in a few days.
Yeah.
I had to go talk to people about the job, and then I started the Monday after that.
God, that's cool.
It was very fast turnaround.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So was there anything, and a lot of people coming into a boot camp come from non-tech environments. How much of a benefit do you think it did give you? But then also, how much of it did you think you still weren't sure about? Because I imagine some people might be thinking, oh, she had a cakewalk, going from a dev agency into, becoming a coder because she knew what was going on. But I'd imagine that there was still a lot that was still left to fill.
There was still a lot I didn't know. It was definitely super intimidating, taking the prep JavaScript tests and stuff, where it was okay, I understand some of the concepts, but actually executing this is it's a big difference. Mm-hmm. I had spent enough time around code that a lot of times I could kind of read it and basically understand what was happening, but I had no idea of how to replicate it. I could be okay, I think this is what it's trying to do, but under no circumstances could I write it. I would have to look up something. And for just being involved in tech, I had a good idea of what a career was likely to look like if I decided to pursue that. I knew kind of what the future would look like, and I have an idea of that. But really that's all I came into it with, was just like an understanding of what it could look like if I went this direction, and like what my life might be like and what my job might be like, and like a vague understanding like I liked like messing with that stuff, and it was interesting, and like
And
I'd
one
be able
thing
to
you
actually
said
know
earlier,
what it did.
yeah, you
not
like
just
the
read it.
people too.
Yeah,
like you
and
were
I
saying.
really like the people.
Yeah.
Like I really like just like the camaraderie, and like I really like the way people thought. And like for me, like I'm like a very creative person, but I'm also a very logical person. So it was a really great like combination of those two things.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're creating things, but you have to be logical about it because it's code.
Yep.
So I was like, this seems like it'll be good. So yeah, it like might seem like it was a cakewalk, but not really. I was just familiar with the concepts more than anything,
Yeah.
and not so much the actual execution. The execution was definitely a big learning curve.
Yeah, I had a similar experience in, coming from staffing and recruiting where, I'm talking to developers all day. I'm looking at these job requirements, and, I would never tell anybody that I was technical. I was working in tech.
Yeah.
But, when I saw positions and it said, hey, this is going to require a year or two of Ember, or, a year or two of Angular or Vue on there, I was just asking, checking that box off. But what I will say is, at least when I came through, I kind of had an idea of the software development lifecycle and how to be a good programmer, because I heard from so many hiring managers and clients about what their nightmares were.
Exactly.
Developers that don't communicate, that aren't letting them know when they're struggling, that are possibly going to miss a deadline. Like these little things that when you talk about them out loud, it's like, it's a no-brainer. But then you get into it.
And it's totally not that.
Exactly. And even in the boot camp, it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how much of that and how much were you able to take from your past role of saying these are good developer traits, these are bad developer traits, and then also maybe were you able to share some of those with some of your classmates as well?
Yeah, that actually was something that was a really huge help. Actually, the place that I worked before, a really good friend had gotten me the job, and so she was like basically their senior developer. So like I knew her well anyways, so I knew like a lot of like how she did stuff, like how she thought about it, how she thought about developing, and then I just got close to a lot of the developers, and like being the PM, like yeah, we're friends, but like I need to make sure you get your stuff done on time, and like our project moves forward. So it was definitely one of those things where you got to see like who the really good devs were and who the ones were that needed to like kind of step up their game a little bit. And it was definitely super helpful for me now, knowing like, okay, as a PM, these were the things that I hated, so don't do that. And these are the things that were really fantastic, so make sure you're doing that.
Yeah.
So it was definitely very helpful, and like you said, like seeing it in that like real life experience, like live environment, knowing like if you choose to do something this way, this is how it will actually positively impact your project and help things move forward. So I definitely tried to like kind of pass that along as we worked in group projects, and then just continue to like share that experience with my coworkers now of like, hey, if we focus on it like this will really help us in the future. This will help our project be successful if we like take the time to like approach this in this way versus just kind of like make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually got the opportunity to speak with, one of your coworkers, former classmates as well, Patricia Burns. And of course, she dropped your name, I would say probably about 6 or 7 times. It sounds like you guys have an amazing working relationship. And I guess, could you tell us, she gave us a little bit of an idea of some of the projects she's working on. What are some of the things that you're building?
Oh gosh. So I'm building like kind of a lot of things at once.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, you're good at things. Do a bunch of things. So we do like a lot of basically proof of concept projects. So the main project that I'm on right now is actually taking a previous proof of concept that was put together by one of the, actually my boss now. They decided they wanted to convert it from Angular into React. So we actually rewrote the entire
Interesting.
POC.
What was the decision behind that?
Clients.
Gotcha. Okay.
There was no reason.
No decision.
They're just like, hey, it's fancier. Let's do it in React.
Yeah.
It's okay that you have to like rewrite the entire thing. It's fine. This is like, it's super funny. Like I see this a lot. Like it freaks a lot of people out when clients do stuff like that. And they're like, why would they do that? And like, I'm just used to it at this point.
Yeah. You're like,
normal.
They're the ones writing our paychecks.
Yeah. And like, you just see it like 10 years in tech. Like I've literally seen it in every possible, possible place it happens. So it just like doesn't even bother me anymore. I'm just like, all right, whatever. Just make it happen.
You're like, and that is client follow up and change the project scope number 1. Exactly. We've got about 4 more. Everybody buckle up.
If you're lucky, you got 4. You might have 40.
Yeah. It's like the earthquake that's going to hit California. We're due.
Exactly. So we've actually taken that, but now we have to turn it into a production ready app. So that's definitely been like a very interesting learning curve where a lot of our work is proof of concept. So it tends to be finished fairly quickly. It's not like it's not unpolished, but it's not like super, super polished and dialed in.
Yeah.
Because the client has to decide if they like it. And then if they do like it, they do like, as we're doing with this project, they take it and expand upon it, build out more features and have it to be more polished. So it's actually like production ready so they can roll it out to their companies. And most of these companies tend to be pretty large, like several thousand people. So it gets like extensive use. So that's what I'm working on currently. We actually have a deadline coming up in a few weeks. So that's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
And then we're also working on, I'm actually working with Patricia on what's going to be like a year-long project for another large steel manufacturer. And we're basically building out an application that's going to help them kind of track a bunch of different things in their system and track some information coming from their IoT devices and help them manage that at like a larger, like on both like a smaller scale level and then a larger scale level.
Yeah.
So it gives them a lot of options. And that's mainly like a lot of what we do for most of our projects. And I'm sure like as Patricia mentioned, and like mostly what I work on is a lot of like helping people track the data that's coming from the different devices in their environment and taking that information and displaying it in a usable way for them. Because a lot of companies, especially the ones that we work with, it's companies who are like, okay, we want to have this new fancy like IoT tech. We don't even know what it means. Like, what is it?
Do you ever ask them? Yeah. You're like, what does that stand for?
It's a thing. Everyone has it. We want it.
Yeah.
And like some of them are like, okay, we know how it will help our business. Some people don't. And like you kind of learn as they go along. But for all of them, it actually is really practical applications for their business day to day. And so it's really fun, like having the chance to kind of help them build out something that's actually going to eventually make their life a lot easier to like track different information and keep tabs on it. Like to be able to check in on something before it's even happened. Like the application will be like, hey, you're going to have a problem here. You should check on this. And it allows them to like speed up their response time to different things and to handle things more quickly.
Okay.
So like a lot of my projects are basically just that. They're pretty similar.
Yeah, but how is that bouncing between so many different projects? Because, and this maybe is something that people coming from outside the industry might not be super aware of, is how many companies, they have 1,000 people in there. Oh, they have 1,000 people. They must have a development team and they can handle all of that. But how many companies actually do outsource, this work? And there's similar companies to yourself, like Tensor IoT. There's, you've got Envoy, you've got Vincent, these dev shops in the area that Parapixel and there are places that are, working on a lot of different client projects. And so it's not just like, hey, you're the developer who's going to be doing one thing every single day. How has that been? Has that been something that's been fun? Has it been hectic? Did you feel like you were prepared going into it, coming out of a boot camp? What is life like knowing that you've got a deadline and then right after there's another project or maybe multiple projects at once?
I have demos on Friday and then the following Monday for 2 different projects. Every 2 weeks.
Okay. Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
So it's very hectic.
Yeah.
All the time. It's also fun. Like I do actually enjoy it. I love what we do. It was one of those things like when I first started there, it's kind of like, am I going to like this? Like there's a very heavy focus on AWS services that I wasn't super familiar with. And like having come from a web agency, I kind of figured like that's the kind of work that I want to just like build a website and move on. So I was kind of like, we'll just see. Like, we'll see how this works out. Like, I need to have experience. Like, we'll try it out. And I actually love what we do. Like, it's super interesting. There's always something new. There's always new stuff to learn. There's so many different services that get used in so many different ways. Even though you're doing basically the same kind of application every time, there's always something slightly different about it and something new that you're plugging in or something that one person needs that the other person didn't. So, yeah, like, I really enjoy it. But it is very hectic. Like it gets very busy. Like I think at one point I was assigned to 6 different projects.
Oh
no one should ever do that many at once.
How do you balance that?
You don't really. I work like 50, 60-hour weeks semi-regularly.
Oh, wow.
It's tuning down a little bit. But for a while I was like, I don't think I know people outside of work at this point.
Yeah. Luckily you got married. You locked someone down early.
Fortunately, he's very patient.
Yeah.
And he's okay with it. But yeah, it's definitely been like, it's a lot of work. But I feel like it's paid off well in the fact that I feel like I've learned an astronomical amount since I've started. Like I look back at where I came, like you mentioned, like were you prepared if coming out of boot camp? No, not even close. Like, I mean, I was prepared and I was successful in that sense, but I did not feel prepared.
Yeah.
Like, we got, I think we got assigned our first, like, it was kind of like a starter project, like, hey, kind of work on this together, like our first week, and wasn't that big of a deal. And Patricia ended up actually moving forward with most of that. And then like I'd been there, I think 2 weeks, and they're like, hey, we need you to put user authentication into this major application using this AWS Cognito service that didn't even know existed. Never heard of it.
There's a few AWS services. Yeah.
There's quite a few.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was like, okay, does anyone else here know how to do this? They're like, nope, no one here knows. Go look it up.
Oh.
And I was like,
throw it on the new hire.
So, yeah, I've been here like 2 weeks. All right, let's do this.
Yeah.
And I think it really brought into play, like, I think what probably the most important thing that I took from LearningFuze, like the programming knowledge obviously was very important. You needed to know that. But I think like having been like out in the world for like 6 months or so, which isn't even like that long comparatively, I think honestly the biggest takeaway and the biggest thing that I learned from LearningFuze was learning how to learn. Because the amount that I've had to learn since I left
on the job
is ridiculous. Like I've had to learn so many things. And I feel like if I had not been adequately prepared on how to expand my programming knowledge while I was here in the program, I just would have failed. Like I would not have been able to carry on because you have to expand on what you know so rapidly. Like I had a really good basis starting, but I had to just like add so many things. And so like, you know, even like the lectures where Dan's like, this is how you Google something. Like it sounds crazy, but that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still use that every time. I'm like, wait, add JS at the end because I don't care about Java. Like little things like that are constant everyday things for me that I use like on a regular basis, and like such a huge difference. Seems like it would just be like you said, no brainer. No one would care about this. Super relevant to my everyday life.
Yep. Yeah. So what is and this is something I think that could benefit both you know, current bootcamp students and then people who have graduated, maybe even, you know, junior developers who are in these positions where they're asked to learn something new. What is your steps? What is your process when it's something new is thrown at you? Where are you going first?
Usually for me, I'll check Google first.
Okay.
See if someone's done that before. Depending on what you're doing, 99.9% of the time someone else has done it.
Yeah.
For me, like, and it was like one of the things that we talked about, like, in camp where like, yeah, go to Stack Overflow and see it, but make sure you understand what you're reading first. So even if I pulled something from there, I would always like rewrite it, make sure I understood like what I'm actually writing. I'm not just like dropping someone else's coding because I don't know what it does. So I would be like, all right, find the one that actually makes sense, that worked for someone, and then be like, okay, do I understand what they did? And either like rewrite it myself without taking the code, or like take the code and like break it apart and then plug it back in for what I need. That's usually my first stop, is like see if I can just figure it out myself. And then, but like you said, like there's lots of deadlines, you got a lot going on.
Yep.
Like can't fall too far down the hole and trying to do everything yourself. So once it gets to the point where I'm like, all right, I just have no idea, like nothing is working, then usually I'll check with like a coworker who might be more familiar with the process. I hope that in future jobs there will be a little bit more of that. Right now we're a pretty small company, it's a startup. A lot of us like we're all figuring stuff out as we go. Like I said, I was like the first person in our office who ever used Cognito, and I'm like now the Cognito queen in our office. Everyone's like, Steffany, what do I do? And I'm like, because I'm like the only person who's learned it.
Captain Cognito.
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely one of those things where you learn a lot of stuff like as you go and you kind of share that. We've actually been working on setting up like some workshops in the office to kind of help do knowledge sharing between the different devs and stuff. Like actually we're planning one to talk about Cognito because it's something that a lot of our clients request. And so just to kind of walk like our front end devs, like this is how you do it, so that like obviously I don't mind helping people, but like that way they can feel empowered to do it themselves, and you know, to be like, oh, it's Steffany who might not be here right now. So yeah, I think that's definitely been like one of the biggest takeaways was just being able to learn how to do new things.
And obviously you were pretty good at it because you got promoted recently to assistant lead developer. Yeah. How was that? What was that process like? I mean, what, it's been 6 months?
It's been 6 months.
That's crazy.
Nuts.
Yeah.
The company is growing really quickly. They're actually planning to double our front end development team.
Wow.
By the end of technically the end of this month, but I think it's probably gonna be next month. Okay. So they're growing. Well, we need that many people. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. Where we have a lot of stuff coming in and just not enough people. Hence the like being assigned to 6 projects, which is less than optimal. The company is definitely striving to have like 1 person per project, that kind of thing. So, but it's was definitely like very interesting. It's exciting. Like for me, I feel like it's a really good opportunity to be able to help my fellow developers and like contribute. Like we have a really fantastic team there. Like everyone works together really well. Everyone's super friendly. Like it's super collaborative and I really like that. And so it's like I like being able to have the opportunity to like help encourage people and like pass on like what I know. Like it's not always a ton. I probably wouldn't have been like an assistant lead dev at like a more established company after 6 months.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's given me like a really great option to be able to help the people around me. And like that's one of the things I really enjoy just in working in general is working with a team and just helping everyone succeed.
Yeah. Well,
So-
I mean, I know for a fact in firsthand experience going through Forge 54 with you and that charity hackathon where you won, Rookie of the Year, people recognize that. It's definitely not something that, goes unnoticed, and it's awesome to see that Tensor, has seen that in you as well because it is really important and something that I think is interesting. From a lot of developers and hiring managers that I talk to is sometimes it can be tough to find developers who are willing to move into those leadership roles because when you get into development, a lot of people don't think about developers as managers. You don't think about, you think more about the person who's going to sit there, write the code, pass it along, and then they're going to hop in their Tesla and drive home at the end of the day, not the person who might be sitting across the desk or the table from a client, or not the person who's going to be sitting down with a junior new hire for the first 3 days to show them how to get used to the system where once again, most people signed up to code and do a lot of this stuff so that they could be hands-on building things, not walking people through stuff, not maybe giving a presentation on a new language. So, but it's huge because it puts you in that, it puts you in a unique category. And when people, especially, CEOs, and it sounds like, Ravi is a great CEO, recognize that, it makes things a lot easier on them. So keep it up. Yeah, I know how easily you made it on us, and that's both with LearningFuze and at Forge 54. So I'd imagine that you're doing something similar at Tensor, and it's awesome.
I mean, for me, it's just like I really love learning things. Like I love learning how to do new things. Whether it's like a complicated thing, whether it's a pointless little thing, like I really enjoy that. And I think that kind of has contributed to a lot of that because I'm willing to just like learn how to do something new. And I think that makes a big difference. Like being willing to just take on something that you're like, no idea how to do this. I'm gonna figure it out.
Challenge accepted.
Exactly. And I think that's probably made like a lot of the difference in those situations where it's just like, okay, I can do this. Even if I can't, I will figure out how.
I will figure out how, or I will find somebody who can tell me how.
Exactly.
If I get to that point. If I can't do it myself. Cool. Well, any last thoughts you'd want to leave, whether it's somebody who's looking at a boot camp, whether it's somebody who's just finished a boot camp, is getting ready to go through their job search. Of course, we're talking about LearningFuze. It's there. It's, on my computer. We're sitting here at LearningFuze. And, we could talk about it all day. But more importantly, we really goal for this podcast and vlog is to help people who maybe have chosen another program, which there's a lot of other options out there, but making sure that they also get the support that they need because we're an industry, we're in this together. And the last thing that we want to see is, other people coming out of programs and not feeling like they got the support. So let's see what we can give them. So what would you tell people, whether it's this is what to do to get ready or, hey, this is what you need to do while you're going through your job search?
I think it's it's a lot of like, don't get discouraged. Like, it's going to be stressful while you're in boot camp, but you can do it. Like, you just have to like, I think for me, it was really important, like knowing going in that like I was signing up to completely change basically my entire life. I went a little overboard and literally changed I hit like every single major life event in 1 year. Don't do that. Just go to boot camp.
Yeah.
Don't get married and move 3 times.
Yeah. 3 times?
3 times.
Oh my gosh.
Don't do that. But understanding that like it's not just that like, okay, I'm going to boot camp and I'm gonna change jobs. Like you're literally going to rewrite basically your whole life. And that's not a bad thing. Like that's a really good thing. But being prepared for that, like mentally, I think was really important for me. Understanding that like I'm not just doing this because, okay, I'm going to get a new job. Like I'm doing this because it's important for me to choose like a different path. Like I want something different for my future because of this. Like I'm making a major life change to do this. And I think that made a huge difference for me in how I approached it because it was like, okay, this isn't just a like go to school so I can get a better job. This is like, I am tangibly going to make my life better by applying myself in this situation. And that even like bled into like the job search and everything else where it's just like, there's a very clear goal there. And I think that helped me a lot. Like, not having that goal, I don't think I would have been able to be nearly as successful, because it would have been really easy to just get super discouraged and overwhelmed, because it's hard. Like, you're not doing something that's simple. No matter if you're going to LearningFuze or anywhere else, like, it's hard work. Like, you get in what you, like, you get out what you put in.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you want to go somewhere, you need to work really hard. And I think it's one of the most important things, is making sure that your mindset is really good when you're coming in, like, knowing that, like, you're committing to making your life change, not just like here for a lark, because it's not a lark.
Yeah.
And if it is, you probably should come to LearningFuze instead. Where you actually like learn a ton of stuff and like walk away like prepared for something different.
Good.
So,
Good. Well, I'm glad. So
yeah.
Confidence in yourself you must have. Right? Okay.
Exactly.
We'll just leave the horrible accents. Let you stick with the Star Wars stuff. I'll stick with the career services. Thanks so much for coming out, Steffany.
Absolutely.
This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. It's great
Appreciate
to see
it.
everyone again.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Cool. Thank you.